as well as get to know several organizations and projects which are implementing this approach already. And here our experts will also share their experiences and perspectives, and there you're able to ask some questions and talk to each other after each presentation. And then in the second part of the workshop, we will be more interactive, or even more so interactive, as we will get together in smaller groups and in our co-design session to really answer the question, how can living lab methodologies be enhanced to improve the outcomes, overcome the key challenges, and to foster the long-term impact? And at the end of this, then also the results of the group work will be presented to the entire audience again, and we will have a short summary of the workshop. But before I give the floor to our first expert, I'd like to quickly introduce you to the Shift Hub project, under which this entire capacity building workshop series is brought to you. So Shift Hub is a European coordination support action, which is funded by the European Commission with almost 2 million euros budget. And with this funding over 3 years, we are really focusing on creating a smart health innovations and futures technologies hub across Europe. And this pan-European approach is really important to us. And so far, this approach is based on the 11 partners in the consortium that represent 7 different countries, including Belgium, Germany, France, Italy, Portugal, and Romania. But of course, we want to go beyond that. And we are having and hosting several events and networks to join the hub to really create or to reach across Europe or European-wide. Our project partners furthermore represent important stakeholders along the smart health value chain. And together we're all working towards our main goal, which is to facilitate the development, ensure the promotion, and then finally also foster the uptake of smart health technologies and services. So really get these technologies and services to the people. So with this smart health innovations and futures technologies hubs that we're currently building, we are providing a holistic service offer to all the stakeholders of the smart health innovation ecosystem. This, of course, includes first and foremost the citizens and patients and healthcare professionals, as well as the developers of smart health technologies and policy and decision makers. So we really want to cover everyone and address everyone with our service offer. And the services I've mentioned can be actually divided into these 4 pillars here. So the first one includes the objectives and services for really building and supporting that smart health community across Europe by bringing the stakeholders together of the entire value chain and to really connect them. We do this via our community platform, which hosts several online events and workshops, such as today's event, or even matchmaking opportunities. Another key initiative of this community is also our focus group on e-health. This really brings together small and medium-sized enterprises, healthcare providers, research institutions, and public bodies by creating, like here, really a dedicated and vibrant network, which is dedicated on advancing digital health. And here, regularly different topics are addressed, like AI, data spaces, or cybersecurity. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check that out. Then in Pillar 2, we offer support for the development and the uptake of smart health products. So this comprises services which are rather targeted towards the technologies providers and the developers. So here we provide services from generating new ideas over finding the right partners and finance access to really showcasing the developed solutions. And with that, we basically want to cover the entire pathway of the application development. So, for example, we could start in our open innovation workshops where we really focus on idea generation and then road mapping to really facilitate getting your idea into actual implementation. And then if you have identified your idea or defined it better, and you have come up with the implementation plan, then we support you in finding the perfect partners for realizing your idea. So, for example, in the matchmaking events. And then when you start putting your ideas really to use, we offer support in finding access to finance, public as well as private, and also access to health data to develop and to test your new digital solutions via our Smart Health Data Space pilot. Here there will be an onboarding session next week, actually on Wednesday, where you get introduced to that space pilot. So feel free to check that out. You can also find the event on our community platform. And then, of course, finally, once your solution is market ready, we have our demo days, which give you visibility and opportunities to showcase them to the end users. such as healthcare professionals and citizens. And if we look at pillar 4, this one is dedicated to sustainability and replication of the provided services. So here we really implement actions such as the Entrepreneur Discovery Workshop series. So this is another workshop series. And this concept here is developed to identify and to compare the chances, barriers, and the structures between regional innovation ecosystems to really give them a higher visibility and to really involve here policy and decision makers and give them suggestions and recommendations so that they can do more informed decision making. So basically under this pillar, we have all actions summarized that really pave the way for the uptake of digital health solutions, also from the legislative side. And finally, or I'd say most interesting for us today, is pillar 3, which is the one that includes actually our living lab activities. And under this pillar, services directed at the patients and the citizens are enclosed, such as educational resources on smart health and applications to really increase the trust and the digital literacy also here, or our gamified user journey around help to really facilitate improving the citizens' knowledge on healthy living. And here we provide this by the creation of 5 mini games, which are accessible by our website. So I also encourage you to have a look at them and to play around with those a bit. And then, of course, our living labs themselves, which are the topic of today's workshop. And my Shift Hub colleague, Anita, will go more into detail on our approach later on in her talk. So I'm skipping that for now. So I'm not going to wear you out on the Shift Hub project itself anymore. So I've just given you a really short overview about the network and the service offers. But of course, aside from providing all these services, one of our main goals is really to share knowledge and best practices and to support and improve smart health ecosystem in a sustainable fashion. And one way of this knowledge sharing is actually represented by this capacity building workshop series, which we're hosting today. And without any further ado, now it's my pleasure to open our first part of today's workshop by welcoming my Shift Hub colleague, Evangelina Romanopoulou from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. So she is a research assistant at the Lab of Medical Physics in the Medical School of the university, where she actively contributes to a variety of funded research and projects. With an academic background in computer science and biomedical bioinformatics, she brings a strong interdisciplinary perspective to her work. And since 2009, she has been deeply involved in the design and the implementation of diverse educational trainings and certification programs, ranging from student internships to adult education and also initiatives for vulnerable population groups. So her work focuses on really harnessing new technologies to enhance the skills of healthcare professionals, reflecting here her strong commitment to lifelong learning and the digital advancements of the healthcare sectors. And Leah will now introduce us into the living labs in general, why they matter, and how they can actually advance open innovation and stakeholder engagement. So Leah, the stage is yours and you're free to take over the screen sharing.
Perfect. Thank you, Alina. I would now share my screen. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. So my name is Evangelia Romanopoulou. Today I will present you about living labs, why they matter, how they function, and how they help us co-create solutions by engaging multiple stakeholders. So let's start with a simple question. What is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear living lab? Just take a second to think. So although people think different things about living labs, others refer to living lab as innovation, as collaboration, experimentation, or even community. So keep that first word in your mind as we move forward. A living lab is an innovation intermediary. It's not just a place, it's a structure ecosystem that brings together public and private actors, academia, and citizens. Living Labs will design products and services in real-life environment, testing, refining, and evolving them based on continuous feedback. One of their key outcomes is co-creation of social value. Living Labs act as orchestrators between citizens, researchers, companies, and government agencies. They focus on joint value creation, rapid prototyping, and scaling up innovation. This is not just about technology, it's about systems, people, and context working together. The foundation of Living Lab models is the quadruple helix: government, academia, industry, and civil society. These four domains bring complementary perspectives, and their collaboration ensures innovation, practical, accepted, and impactful. So how can we explore stakeholder needs and requirements? To innovate effectively, we first understand stakeholder needs and requirements. We do this through interviews, focus groups, workshops, surveys, creating personas, and the whole participatory design techniques. These tools give us the insights needed to make innovation meaningful. So let's focus on the co-creation. So co-creation is a collaborative process where stakeholders, especially the users, the end users, working together to create value while are actively involved in developing new services and products. They contribute their experiences, ideas, and expectations. This shared value creation makes innovations more effective and more likely to succeed. As we can see in this picture, each person touches a different part of the elephant. Everyone is partially right, but no one sees the whole picture. This is exactly why we need co-creation in Living Labs. Everyone, user, expert, policymaker, developer, hold a piece of this puzzle. Only by working together through collaboration and shared insight, we can truly understand the whole system or the problem and create better, more inclusive solution, designing something that works for everyone. Co-creation helps bridge gaps between ideas and reality. In Living Labs, the process highlights the social value in our innovation. It's not just about creating something new, it's about creating something meaningful. This image is a reminder that a real user involvement doesn't mean pulling people in at the end. It means inviting them at the beginning, so the solutions are built with them, not only for them. By providing feedback, sharing experiences, generating ideas, or even challenging assumptions, making the outcome more relevant and impactful. So these diagrams beautifully illustrate how participatory design is not a one-off step, but it's a continuous thread. It starts with a empathy and problem framing in the designing thinking process, evolves through prototyping and testing in lean startup, and stays alive during agile development through iterative user feedback. Participation is not just about asking users what they want, it's about co-design and co-evolving solutions with them at every step. This is what makes user-centered design powerful. It's not about creating what we think people may need. It's about involving the users throughout, understanding their experience, and testing every idea against the real world needs. The circular arrows remind us that user-centered design is an ongoing conversation, not a checklist. We don't move forward until we're sure that we're designing with users for users. This map shows that how living labs are not tied to a single methodology. It's about blended approaches to match the complexity of real-life innovation. User-centered design plays a central role. It anchors the process in real user needs, helping us evolve towards more participatory, inclusive, and impactful outcomes. There are different techniques that are core tools used in living labs to support co-creation, iteration, and stakeholder involvement throughout the innovation process. Design thinking. Bring together different experiences, opinions, and perspectives on a problem in order to create innovations that focus on the user and solve his problem in the best possible way. Organizing Word Café. The actors involved in the innovation process can be brought into conversation with each other in order to discuss problems and questions in small groups. Open space. Participants can communicate topics that have chosen themselves to initiate their own working groups. Service blueprint as a method for visualize integrative processes, like processes that are characterized by the integration of resources of several actors, uses tests that may be understood as the intention of potential users to adopt an innovative offer, or even organize focus groups, brings together 5 to 10 people and one moderator to lead the exchange of ideas, organize workshops, interviews, structure mainly conversation where one participant asks questions and the other provide answers, surveys, personas, a character which is created based upon research to represent the different user types that might use a service, product, site, brand in a similar way. So in short, Living Labs offer us a framework where innovation is not something done by people, but something done with them. By combining participatory methods, real-world experimentation, and cross-sector collaboration, we don't just build new things, we create real impact. So thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you very much. So I would now open the floor for questions. So if there are any questions from the audience, please raise your hand. Or you can also put them in the chat if you'd like to. I think that this was a really good overview and introduction into the topic, because maybe not everyone might be familiar with the Living Labs yet so far. And I think that like the next talks will also kind of build up on your presentation, going a bit more into examples and showcasing like, I'd say, implementation strategies more in detail. So I think I'm pretty sure that there will be some follow-up questions after that. And still for the other Q&A sessions, you can also, again, ask questions to Evangelia, because she will be around the entire workshop. So if something comes up to your mind, we can also address that in the next session. Okay, because then I would just jump back to our main presentation and start introducing our next speaker. because now I would like to welcome Anita Varela. She is also a research assistant at a medical physics and digital innovation laboratory in the School of Medicine at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. But her background actually is in psychology, which is with a particular focus in cognitive and clinical neuroscience. And her research work focuses on assistive technologies and healthy aging, with an emphasis on improving the quality of life of older adults. She has been involved in EU-funded projects that apply user-centered design and also living lab methodologies, aiming to co-develop and to evaluate the digital solutions. So she is the perfect candidate to give us some more insights into actual implementation approaches, and she will also introduce you to the living lab approach used in ShiftHub, as well as the Tessa Hall living lab methodology. Anita, the stage is yours. You are free to take over screen sharing.
Great, thank you, Elena, for the introduction. Just give me a second to share my screen. No, oops, sorry. It's a bit back, sorry. Okay. Okay, I assume you can see in a bit in full screen my slides.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Welcome all to this capacity building workshop. My name is Anita Varela. As mentioned, I'm a research assistant in the Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation in the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And I'm gonna deep more into how we co-create smart health, and specifically focusing on the ShiftHub approach and the Tessa Hall Living Lab. So starting off, okay, starting off with the first part, so the ShiftHub approach. Elena has already introduced the project. However, I would like to remind that the project aims to establish a pan-European smart health innovation hub to foster the uptake of all these different smart health technologies and services. And we build our work around these three pillars, so build and boost, connect and thrive, and learn and grow. And today we're going to focus more on the Living Labs service, the Living Lab methodologies, and with the aim to ensure that we provide an immersive experience for patients, citizens, and others relevant stakeholders of the society. So during the ShiftHub project, we have planned already four different living labs. The first two were conducted here in Thessaloniki. Both living labs had the aim to have an interactive sessions with different stakeholders, explore different solutions, promote accessibility, support, and community engagement. The third living lab was conducted in Bucharest, Romania. There we had real-time interaction with different health technology providers, different stakeholders, again allowing co-creation and different feedback loops for these technologies. And the final one was conducted in Portugal, in Porto, again through interactive sessions, gathering feedback from end users, aiming to validate different digital platforms. So here you can see some of the different photographs of all those living labs. We can see multiple people, technologies, facilitators. But we wanted today to focus on a real example, the Living Lab here in Thessaloniki Action for Health and Wellbeing Living Lab. It's part of our Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation. And specifically, the goal of our Living Lab, Tessa Hall, in short, is to establish interdisciplinary cooperation, co-create innovative technological solutions and best practices through implementing all the different methodologies and techniques that my colleague Evangelia presented previously, allow open access and experimentations within different infrastructures, and also allow for the exchange of knowledge and experience among the different stakeholders. So the methodology we follow is as follows. It's called Agile Development Methodology, starting from gathering the requirements of end users, designing, developing, and also testing the prototypes that are being developed throughout this process, deploy, and later on review. And this is a whole iteration cycle, as also seen in the visual, with the aim, of course, to release the final products. And here you can see some logos. These are some of the projects that we do follow this kind of methodologies, and then having available these different services as mentioned. Our Living Labs network involves different stakeholders. We work very closely with associations, daycare centers, healthcare professionals, associations, again, patient associations, rehabilitation centers, hospitals, but also with medical students, healthcare professionals, personal trainers, and other related professionals in these fields. So let's see practically some of the examples that we applied these methodologies within our Living Lab. So we wanted to focus on three different categories. So our Living Lab not only focuses on developing technologies or social innovation services, but also works as a key, let's say, enabler for determining key contents, methodologies, and tools, and also functions in terms of promoting and enhancing medical education. Focusing on the first category, determining key contents, methodologies, and tools, here we can see the example of three different projects, DS Leisure, DS Aging, and ID Gaming. So the main objectives of these projects was through co-creation sessions to develop methodological guides, of course, with the direct participation and involvement of the different stakeholders, and specifically the people that will actually use this kind of guidelines, this training material, training activities, and training platforms. So we work with them, for them. And here you can see some pictures that depict this kind of work. Also, in the other category mentioned, developing a technology or a social innovation service, a very characteristic paradigm of our work is the CAPEN project. The aim of this project was to design and develop microprojectors to provide a smart home assistant for older adults. So here we had a really strong stakeholders community that was built and maintained across the whole duration of the project, and not only during the project. We'll see later on how we try to maintain this kind of community for future actions. Here we used, as mentioned, the agile requirements elicitation. So this community was actually called co-designers. They were the main resource for eliciting the requirements to develop this kind of digital solutions. So here we can see that during this project, we had the opportunity to have a continuous engagement strategy to create and maintain this community. These are some of the steps that we followed during this project. So firstly, we empathize with the people, with the stakeholders. We talk, we discuss about their everyday life problems. We try to gather needs, try to understand the real problems that they face in their everyday life. Later on, the idea is to ideate. So the main goal is here to generate knowledge about, for instance, how older adults imagine having, let's say, use case scenarios, how they will use the forthcoming technology that will be developed during the project. And later on, once we gather all this data, all this information, we test the prototype, we develop the prototype, and we test it with them. So here the goal is to gain meaningful feedback. This involves, of course, generating user feedback as related to the prototypes developed. This will allow us to gain a deeper understanding of how users feel, how users view this prototype, and then we review the whole process. A more new, let's say, project is the Comfort Age project. Here we focus on two different pilot studies, frailty management and enhancing digital and health literacy for older adults. You can see in the photos we had different co-creation sessions through the method of developing personas, as mentioned by my colleague previously. Here is the aim is to detect early frailty, assess the impact of multimodal interventions, and also assess digital and health literacy among older adults. Following another example, we had the Cisco project, where here again we had a large cohort of stakeholders where we involved them in the project through interviews, through focus groups, in order to collect both quantitative and qualitative data in terms of ageism on older adults, the impact of ageism on older adults, social health and life. And this is where we decided that this whole community needs somehow to be recognized. So we developed the Partners of Experience. Partners of Experience was a solution introduced as a lifelong experiential research project to address everyday living challenges of older adults. So these Partners of Experience were actually the older adults that were involved in the program that tested and validated all these learning activities across different research groups, guided by, of course, the Thessa Hall researchers. To understand better what this Partners of Experience community is, you can see some of first photos of the activities conducted during this effort. So we used different methods. They were all mentioned previously: participatory design, open lectures, it's intergenerational educational actions, so different joint activities, learning by doing. We had different field visits, public consultation, and different seasonal events as well to increase awareness around the topic. On the bottom right, you can see also some cards. So they were literally part of our research group, and this was the idea to let them also know that you are part of this whole experience, and you are as a researcher like us, for instance. So the Partners of Experience aim to enhance active citizenship, to tackle the risk of ageism in the aging population and chronic patients by introducing a lifelong learning program for early stage researchers over 65 years old. So this also allows, of course, for the academia to be open. We promote open science, social research, and co-creation. We had different activities, for instance, learning by doing. You can see here some photos where we had different co-creation activities, intergeneration activities. You can see different actors involved in these activities: students, researchers, older adults, all of this happening in the School of Medicine in the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. Educational visits in museums, in the Science Museum, in the History Museum, and different field visits in the library, in the Thessaloniki Water Park, etc. More pictures of the educational visits we had here in the School of Medicine. Learning by doing again, gatherings. You can see how we co-create using different tools, digital tools, more pen and paper tools to validate the different concepts and tools. The cultural visits mentioned, so we had activities taking place in museums, galleries, and technology parks. We also had awareness and social offer actions. So in different social, let's say, gatherings, we invited them to participate with us. Seasonal activities, we almost every year organize a Christmas fest that we invite them. We have different activities together. Sometimes we also go to marathons together. And we never stopped, especially during the COVID-19 period. We try to engage them through technological means. So we had e-coffee sessions, extensive use of online interactive means. So we did not stop our interactive activities even during COVID. We also use the city as a living lab. So we have outdoor activities, participatory research and social innovation activities in the city, organizing exercise in the park, going together in cafes. We have outdoor excursions. And here you can see the co-developers actually in action. So you can see them testing and using these digital solutions that they help us develop together. So we open the academia and the city to embrace the solutions developed with and for citizens. Besides from the previous pillars of actions that we follow within our Living Lab, we also follow different methodologies in terms of medical education. So in the context of different projects, we use co-creative methodologies to build solid medical experiential content that brings together a network of academics, medical educators, and industrial content creators. Stakeholders developed, tested, and evaluated the different educational, immersive, tangible, and intangible resources. So the content was developed for medical students involving 3D printing, AR, VR, and mixed reality, also educational resources. This co-creation approach allows to promote innovative practices within medical education and again fosters open education. So our vision is to co-design and co-create with and for the society in innovation and science. So you can see we work together. Research and society are not two independent entities. We work together. We co-design and co-create practices. We boost innovation through collaboration among different stakeholders, public dialogue, better targeted societal support, and development of sustainable policies and practices. So to conclude this talk, the SIFT Hub vision is to emphasize in transforming adapting a transformative model where society and research co-create innovation, ensuring science serves real-world needs. So Thessa Hall, the Living Lab, stands as a leading paradigm of this vision in action, a living lab where citizens, researchers, policymakers, and industry actively collaborate to design smart health digital solutions. So through these inclusive co-design practices, Thessa Hall demonstrates how innovation is boosted through active stakeholder engagement. Societal needs are effectively met through inclusive needs-driven solutions, and sustainable policies emerge from participatory processes. So as a living example of the project mission, Thessa Hall not only pioneers smart health innovation, but also redefines how we create in research, so with and for society. And thank you. Any questions? Perhaps?
Thank you, Anita. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there, yeah, perfect. I'll just directly pass the floor on to you. Jon, please go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Was curious, based how long is the hub, the Living Lab functioning? How big is the team? Or how do you ensure the long-term sustainability of the projects, or I don't know, the functioning? If you can share some details.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So I would say it's approximately 10 to 11 years that our Living Lab is functioning. What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
So how long? How big is the team?
How big is the team? Okay, so the team of our lab involves more than 75 active researchers internally. And we use the infrastructure of the Living Lab in the context of the different research projects. So it resembles also let's say a real life environment where stakeholders come, they feel comfortable into testing the different technologies, into providing the different the input that we require for the projects. And in terms of sustainability, we also have a communication channel, digital communication channel, where we have all of our the members of the community inserted there, so we know who is part of the community, and we call them for let's say different activities that we have. We try to involve them in the different actions in terms of research. But besides from that, we also organize, as mentioned, different activities, more, let's say, fun activities for them, like the fests during Christmas. So we try to, as much as possible, engage them continuously across the years.
Sorry, just for the clarification. So the services are accessed through research projects. Somebody is gaining funding or is part of a project where you are also providing the service. Do you have situations where people come from outside, actually say, look, I want this to be tested and I will pay, and you have this kind of service available and actually happening?
So besides, okay, yes, we do also have research initiatives that after the project remained as self-funded initiatives, as services. So still people can come, test the technologies, be part of the interventions, because we are talking here also about interventions that we continue, we sustain even after the finalization of the research project. So yes, also that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions.
David, I've seen that you have raised your hand earlier. Do you want
Yeah,
to comment,
but you made a very good question. So my question is already solved. So thank you. I to do my work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, great, thanks.
Great minds think alike. This is what it said.
I wanted to say that as well. So good. I do not see any other hands up yet, so I would just continue with our next speaker, but there will be other Q&A possibilities as well. So next, it is my pleasure to introduce our third speaker. So I'd like to welcome Evdokimos Konstantinidis. He is the leader of the Assistive Technologies and Silver Science Research Group in the Medical Physics and Digital Innovation Lab at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. His research interests lie predominantly in the area of living lab methodologies, combined with agile aspects in the health and well-being domains, as well as the design of tools used as interventions for elderly. He also has been a principal investigator for a couple of national, international funded research projects, for which one of them resulted in a spin-off, which is called Captain Coach, which he also co-founded. He is also the chairperson of the European Network of Living Labs and coordinator of the Health and Wellbeing Living Lab Action-Oriented Task Force. And he will now give us an introduction to the ENOL network and its role in shaping innovation. So Evdokimos, the stage is yours.
Hello all, thanks for the introduction. I'm gonna share my screen. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Okay, thanks a lot for the confirmation. So, Evdokimos Konstantinidis, Vice Chair at ENOL and postdoc researcher at the Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation. And I'm really happy that I will be today with you to share what ENOL does, but actually how living labs can go from local to global impact. ENOL is an international non-profit association of certified living labs. We have more than 170 active members and more than 500 historically certified members. We do a lot of activities. Our flagship event is the Open Living Lab Days, which take place on a yearly basis. But we have many activities because our main scope is to service our members, our 170 members. A number that is growing a lot since the European Commission has started believing or understanding the value of the living labs and promoting the usage of living labs, the involvement of living labs, or the development, the creation of new living labs through its European Commission calls. So as you can see, we have a good collaboration with the Soul mission, with the Cancer mission, and partnership in agroecology. and we have been mentioned in the European Research Innovation Agenda. We provide the path to grow, which means that we have different supporting tools for depending on the maturity, corresponding to the maturity of the living labs. So we have the certification and labeling for those that are in the entrance mode, the research organizations or the organization actually that apply the co-creation principles. We have the capacity building and also the working groups for the more advanced living labs. And we do believe a lot in certification because actually this is a seal of quality and comes from the demand for this comes from two sides. Our members want this certification because they want to differentiate from any organizations that mention that they are living labs, although they are not adopting the principles of the living labs, as well as from the European Commission because they want to understand, they want to make sure that those that claim are living labs are indeed living labs. There is a big capacity building team in Enol, so if you read the capacity building, someone of my colleagues will get back to you. There is also a capacity building catalog. You have the QR code, and I think that the slides will be also shared with you. So you can get all the information there about the different capacity building programs. We have tailored training programs, the virtual learning lab where many of us participate as trainers. The Living Labbers Academy in Action, something new. It's the academy.enol.org, and also master class on different topics like communicating results, creation, and the deep dive where actually members visit another member in order to understand. So what are living labs? I'm gonna make it really quickly, but just to give this point of view. The definition of Enol is that living labs are open innovation ecosystems in real-life environments based on a systematic user co-creation approach that integrates research and innovation activities in communities, placing citizens at the center of innovation. Although we have living labs active in many different domains, from health to agriculture to ocean to many domains, all of them share the same principles and the same components. But let's see the definition. So we say that living labs are open innovation ecosystems. When we speak about innovation, it's always about creating value for the end user, creating value for the user, staying tuned to the needs of the user. Open innovation, on the other hand, is when we collaborate with others out of the organization in order to create this innovation. So in other words, open innovation is about having the framework for collaborating with others, which collaborating means also sharing ideas, sharing IPs, etc., or information on IPs, in order to make sure that we create real value for the end user. Living labs in real life environments, it means that living labs do experiment in real life environments. And when we say real life environments, it's not like this. As you can imagine, this is an environment that experimentation could take place, but actually what we need is the patient. We need also the doctor, we need the family in order to build trust, we need the ethics manager. So as you can see, what living labs do, and I'm sure that Leah has already mentioned some of this and Anita has touched upon this, is actually building the trust with the humans, with the people of the community in order to make sure that experimentation takes place without people having second thought on what is going to happen and things like this. So it's the active involvement of all the stakeholders. And this is why the first thing that Living Labs do is actually to ask what's in it for the people that will be involved. We don't use patients, we don't use doctors, the community, etc., in order to create value only for the patients, or we don't use patients in order to create value for the doctors. Everybody has to understand, all the stakeholders, the different types of stakeholders have to understand what's in it for them in order to make sure that we ensure this long-term involvement in the living lab activities. So it's always one for all and all for one. And then we say that living labs are based on systematic user co-creation approach, but quadruple helix is not something new. It has been introduced years before the conception of Enol. But what Enol or living labs do actually is that they have specific methodologies for the different steps of the innovation. They have methodologies, they have tools that are not written in stone actually, but tools and methodologies that they are evolving. And how we do this? When we gather, as I said before, on a yearly basis in the Open Living Lab days, we have also working groups or sessions on the Living Lab methodology and what works, what doesn't work in order to move further. As you can see, this is one of the Living Lab process based on the design thinking. And since we have many different, I'm skipping this, since we have many different types of Living Labs or many Living Labs working in different domains, we are thinking of Living Labs as regional innovation hubs. What does this mean? We have a Living Lab in health in Thessaloniki, for instance. We have another Living Lab in mobility in Thessaloniki. It would be nice for those two Living Labs to work together. So researchers, and this comes back to the question that was raised to Anita before, researchers that come and want to use a Living Lab, they want to study or to experiment with patients and mobility, they can use these 2 or 3 Living Labs in the ecosystem as if it was one. But the main prerequisite for this is to harmonize. So the Living Labs know how to work together very well, harmonized, transparently. So for an external researcher, it's one Living Lab. It's not 2 or 3 different Living Labs. So then we have the question, should we build and sustain our own Living Lab? Because there is the idea of using an existing Living Lab, buying the service, using the service of the Living Lab, or we create a Living Lab, but we should avoid these project-based Living Labs. What are these project-based Living Labs? As I said before, the European Commission asks for Living Labs to be built, or existing Living Labs. And for this, there are many organizations that create a Living Lab in order to fulfill or to address a requirement of a proposal. But then when the project finishes and there is no real sustainability plan for the Living Lab, the Living Lab is fades out actually. So it was a lot of resources invested in something that could be provided by another Living Lab, an existing Living Lab. And yes, there are services that can be acquired or used by a Living Lab. I'm going to explain a bit later. So the Living Lab long-term sustainability requires a good business plan and funding. And the 3 years of the project actually is a really short runway. So this is why a Living Lab like the one presented by Anita with 10 or more than 10 years of existence, it can afford periods that there are no projects, but the community is there, the ecosystem is there, and they still need to be to feel that they participate in a community. We have 2 types of research taking place in Living Lab. We have the researchers that use the service of a Living Lab in order to conduct study, but we have also the research community, the research that does research in the Living Lab methodologies and the Living Lab approaches. There are many Living Lab services. Here you can see some of them that we have studied, and you can find more information on these Living Labs and how we try to harmonize them in the wiki.livinglab-harmonization.com. Actually, this comes from the harmonization working group of ENOL, and it's an effort of having the different services that are provided by the Living Labs on a wiki, and then starting having ideas on how we can improve. And every year there is this board of the harmonization that takes the comments into account and tries to develop the services further. I'm going to present also how such services have been studied, collected, studied, and used by externals, so you get a better idea on how a Living Lab that is located in Thessaloniki can create value for a researcher from McGill, for instance, from Montreal. So it was the Vitalize project that was coordinated by ENOL. And actually, in this project, we had 17 research infrastructures, and I'm going to show you what this is, coming from 9 Living Labs and expanding in 7 countries. You can see that from Thessaloniki to Montreal. these are some of the research infrastructures. On the left bottom corner, you can see the virtual to task something working virtual environment in Montreal. On the bottom middle, you can see the virtual hospital from Helsinki, from the Laurea University. And on the top right corner, you can see the centrifuge arm that is hosted by the Thesahal Living Lab, and it's about studying how gravity can be used for rehabilitation. All independent living labs, like the ones that I presented, they have things in common that make them be called like research and innovation enablers. All of them have state-of-the-art technology or specialized equipment that you cannot easily find everywhere. They are flexible and adaptable to accommodate research and innovation needs, providing facilities and resources on demand. So, for instance, if you go to Thesahal Living Lab and you want to have access, in this real case, to patients with dysphagia, the Living Lab will use the resources in order to find access to patients with dysphagia, although they're not the part of the ecosystem. They create living labs, create capacity building programs for skilled workforce to run or use a living lab. So in our case, we have training for researchers to run a living lab, but also for researchers to use an existing living lab without having to learn how to govern a living lab or other activities that are really tailored to sustaining a living lab. They provide support to disciplinarity, and this is actually one of the main principles of the living labs. They provide open and transparent guidelines for accessing the living lab or the data of the living lab. And there is this quality control, which is, as I said before, the seal of quality that comes from ENOL. During this project, we had more than 100 external researchers visiting the different living labs in order to conduct studies by using the services that were provided by the living labs. This is one of the projects. Actually, this is the dysphagia project that I mentioned before. Here you can see external researchers coming from Italy to Thessaloniki in order to access these patients with dysphagia or dysphagia symptoms, because they couldn't find such patients in their case as researchers. On the left, you can see the services that requested from the living labs. And on the right side, you can see the actual services that were used. And this means that there was a kind of not understanding what living labs can provide, or didn't know what actually they wanted in order to achieve this study. Here you can see actually how many hours the staff of the living lab worked on the left side, how many hours the external researchers worked, and how many hours or days patients and doctors were involved in order to facilitate this study. And as I said before, we have this information for more than 40 projects. And here you can see an average of how many, some statistics like projects in average wanted need 5 living lab experts per project. Actually, the living lab effort is more or less around 1 month. The physical access of researchers is limited to 12 days, around 12 days, and the remote access 11 days, because a living lab can provide its services even remotely, which means that the patient asks for some services, and then the living lab starts working on this without the external researchers having to be there. And these are some of the services. I don't know, I mean, it's too small, but I can highlight which services have been used more. Participant recruitment is the top service that requested. And then we have living lab project planning and management, expert opinion and advisory services, legal regulation, safety standard support, or ethical application and management. These are among the more requested services. And this study actually has been highlighted by the European Commission as a best practice of social science and humanities in research infrastructures. Living Labs provide also access to datasets as well, because as you can imagine, harmonizing the activities or the data collection of the so many Living Labs could also provide a wealth of datasets that are already harmonized. So we have high quality datasets, real world datasets, and now we're moving towards agreeing on using a common metadata schema. And for this, we're going to use the EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud metadata. Here are some examples of the virtual access that was provided, but also to mention that we are now moving towards using the RAISE project, which started in the project Vitalize, but now it's moving on through to project, the RAISE and the RAISE Suite project, which is about, it's a broker of data. So the data remains in the Living Lab premises, while external researchers can use the data. At the same time, the Living Lab knows who processed the data, and the persistent identifier like DOE is created. Let us know if you're interested in more information. We can provide more information on this, as it is an active and well-sustained project. We have AxeLab, which actually this is a key exploitable result of the Vitalize project and is used nowadays. And it's about finding a Living Lab to address your problem. So actually how it works is that you as an external researcher, you register a project, a need that you have, and a range of a budget that you have in order to find services. And then you have the different Living Labs bidding on addressing your challenge or your problem and the budget that they would require. And this is about matchmaking. Moving towards, I'm going to touch also how we do research as an all with our members for the same day Living Labs, not using the Living Labs, but for the same day Living Labs. We have a problem as Health Living Labs. It's very difficult for us to access hospitals and healthcare units structures in order to conduct experimentation there, which at some point, as we have many requests, either coming from projects or from externals, in order to provide access to hospitals or to patients. At some point, the nurses or the staff is really overwhelmed and they cannot support us in the different activities. So we try to understand what is the real need. And then we did a study on understanding which are the barriers for conducting research in hospitals. Because in order to find the solution, in order to build a hospital, in order to transform the current hospital to a hospital that would be really open for research activities, etc., we had to understand the barriers. So I'm sure that all of you understand the different barriers. Just to mention the time constraints, lack of training and skills, limited resources that they have, patient care priority, which is good on the one hand, the fear of failure, limited research culture. So we identified these barriers, and then we tried to come up with what would work and what wouldn't. As a Living Lab, we cannot solve all the barriers, but we started now discussing by involving all our members in discussing with doctors and staff of hospitals. Once we see what, sorry?
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure, we are a little bit short on time. Not sure how long.
2 more minutes, I think.
Yeah.
2 more minutes. That's
yeah.
But no, I'm finishing.
Thanks.
So actually, we try to involve the community in order to understand the problem, to understand what would work and what won't, and design the Living Lab Hospital prototype, validate our assumptions that, okay, if you have a room for monitoring that looks like a home, it would be really nice for the patients and they would will to spend some time there. So we try, as you understand, not only to use the Living Labs, but also to develop further the Living Lab concept or the approaches. So while Living Labs, I'm not reading this as you're gonna get the slides, but it's actually there is the innovation, and you have real life environment for experimentation. As a last slide, living labs are not projects, which means that, and I'm getting back to Anita's words, it's a 10-year action actually, our living lab. There were periods that we had projects that didn't require living lab activities, but as Anita mentioned, we had to create some living lab activities in order for the community to feel that they are part of it. Like Anita mentioned, some events, Christmas parties, etc. And this is because projects are there to feed the living lab activities or to provide the budget for having the budget. But at the end of the day, the living lab is blended with the community. It's always there. And the main scope is to be an observator, let's say, in order to understand what works, what doesn't work, and to create opportunities for innovators. I think I was in time. That's all from my side.
Great, thank you very much. So maybe if there are any questions, we can have maybe one short one, and then just keep this discussions later on in the interactive session. So if you have a short question, you can raise your hand now. Just quickly looking over the audience. Yes, Peter, go ahead, please.
I hope this works. How do you ensure that innovation with the services in the living labs are actually translated into services that clinicians participated, but also other users can actually start using the services? So how do you do the transfer from the living lab into services that in the end will be used by the end users, which probably or could be medical device compliant or all the other stuff which are involved? So how is this transfer going so that you have a sustainable service in the end?
The only tool that we have in our hands is the iterative design. So actually what we do is that we don't wait until we believe that we have a service really ready to be deployed, but we start with the main idea. When we have the main idea, let's say that we create an MVP, a first prototype of the service, and we start experimenting. So for instance, in our case, we have a living lab, which is not a living lab, a structure, a research infrastructure, which is a room, which looks like a home. And we have this room. This room is located in the hospital, in the clinic. So the idea now is, although it's equipped with many different sessions, etc., to start bringing patients, but also family members there. And if we see that this works, they feel more comfortable because they have a nice environment, etc. The visitor is not going to hospital, but actually to EVO. If we see that this works, we're going to do the next step. But we avoid creating a super duper, let's say, environment and go to test or validate our assumption 3 years later when it's too late. So the iterative design is the only tool that we have powerful to actually that we have. And the second is that we don't visit the living lab in the hospital when we want to conduct a study, but we try to have someone there because everything is about understanding, feeling. It could be culture. It could be many things, not the service per se that has to change, but to understand the culture and of the working environment, for instance. So these are the two tools that we have.
Okay, great, thanks. I hope that answered your question. I would like to move on to the last speaker to ensure that we also have still some time for our interactive session later. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our last speaker to share your experiences on living labs. And the speaker is David Verde. David is an innovation officer at the IDEA J. Gold Research Institute, which is a leading institute in Catalonia dedicated to research and innovation in the field of primary healthcare. He also is the promoter of the AITAP, which is a Spanish alliance of different national health services. And he has over 25 years of experience in research, innovation management, entrepreneurship, and tech transfer within the healthcare sector. David has also implied or has been implied in the creation of different spin-offs like MyoSafe or Transmural Biotech, or startups like Y-Managing, where he also led the business development area. And he also won the Fondo Emprendedores Repsol Prize in 2013. And today he will share the Living Lab approach implemented in a primary care unit with us. So welcome, David. The stage is yours. You're free to share your screen.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. Okay, do you see?
Yes, all set.
Okay, that's perfect. So once again, thanks for the opportunity to be here with all of us. So I'm going to start right now. Sorry. Okay. First of all, I'm going to explain what's exactly the objective goal. That it's a research center focused in primary care around the full region of Catalonia. So as the difference, as for example, the research centers focus in the hospital that are specifically focused in the main area around the hospital, we are along all the Catalan territory. We are divided in 8 territorial research support units with, several researchers, and it was the first primary care research institute created in Spain. And we have, in the last year, we get 25 years of research in primary care. So we call our Living Lab, we call it the Real World Lab. Probably it's a kind of rimbombant name, but for us has a kind of sense that I'm going to explain you. First of all, say you that we are EULAB accredited for EIT Health since 2022. We are part of the official partner of ShiftHub, and we are going to we expected to apply for EBDOCIMOS. Probably we will have future meetings in order to be part of the ENOL, and we are going to try also to get the ISO 56001, and we already have the typical ISO that everyone has in the companies. Why we create this Living Lab in primary care? We realize that with probably even that say the letters that we see in the screen is that it happens something very special in the World Innovation of it was a congress about innovation I forgot the word in English. Anyway, the idea is that we meet some people that were creating medical devices, and one of them was create something in order to manage the diabetic patients. And the first step that they made is to go to a hospital. Here, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but here in primary care is the first step to access to the National Health Services. So is the place where we manage all these kind of diseases or chronic diseases. So the big problem that they have is that have been testing some of the ideas in an environment which is not the real one, it was a hospital. For diabetic in hospital in Spain, it's only for few people that they are in a very bad moment, or they are lost, for example, their legs, and they have problems of retinopathy. So it was not the place. We meet also another person that was developing something very similar. And when we asked them where has been testing, they say that it was with my grandfather, with a friend of my grandfather, and with the neighbor of my grandfather. So as you will see, the opinion, and it's apart from the end that it's very, very, very small, is that probably the opinion of your grandfather is not the best to be sure that you are in the right way. So is that the reason that we create our Living Lab? Which is the potential? Is that as we are around all around Catalonia, we have access to about 8 million patients. Now we have a lot of primary care centers and local consulting premises, so we have access to a lot of different places. We've also access to more than 10,000 health professionals, and we have divided our testing in urban or rural areas because the needs that they have are very different, and the socioeconomic environment is also very different. Apart from that, we have access to 36 research teams and access to CDAP. CDAP is one of the world's biggest databases in primary care. We have the information of all these 8 million patients from the last 25 years and more than 200 of variables. So we have a lot of information that could be very useful for the projects, and a multidisciplinary team with people with different with expertise in different areas. No, what we offer, we can make the patient recruitment. That is in primary care, it's the very exceptional point, because as you have your same doctor and nurse for several years, the knowledge of the person and the complicity that we have means that recruitment is faster, easier, and with bigger adherence from our side than from for example, from a hospital. No, we have also studies in the socioeconomic impact of the implementation of the solution, of the final solution or the idea in our national health system in Catalonia. We have a specific ethics committee. No, we also can make a responsible research innovation analysis, and we can test, for example, medical devices or similar. We can make studies of user experience. We have CDAP, as I told you before, and we can provide you a quality stamp for the study when we finish. If it works, we can do that. The importance of a lot of things that I'm saying is that probably not all of you knows, but in Spain, each region has its own national health system. And even in Catalonia, we have 2 different national health systems. So it's very important because we include maybe the 90% of the patients of Catalonia in our living lab. Okay, apart from that, we have had in the last months, we had previously for the last 22 years, I think it's AGCAP. AGCAP is the part of the living lab focused only in clinical trials for drug. So we have been doing phase 2, 3, and 4 for several drugs for a lot of years. What we are doing at the moment is the integration of all of these professionals inside the living lab. No, probably we will share the same name in the near future. Now I'm going to explain you some projects that we have been carrying out. Usually our projects are based on needs of our national health system, the need of universities, the need of startups, the need of spin-offs. So the idea is to get enough resources to put in the internal projects of our researchers in order that it will be very easier to get the market and to be implemented in our national health systems. So, for example, the first one is with the GOMACAMS in the beginning of the pandemics. They create with another research institute a mask that it was very different than the others. And apart from that, it was very comfortable. For example, for people that has bird or for people like us, do you remember if you have glass that usually get fogged very easy? So it was our first project, and the idea was that GOMACAMS has to compete with the Chinese masks that were cheaper, but we demonstrate to the system using I think it was 6 different primary care centers, that it was more comfortable, and you can use it for a couple of times. So despite that it was not as cheaper as the Chinese one, at the end of the year, you will save money for the national health system. This other also of Kuma camps is based is a BIP. It's a BIP for residential for older persons, and they, for a reason that they don't know, they didn't make any not too much money selling the unit. So we detect that the problem it was that the kind of packaging, the kind of packaging was not very useful inside the residences. So they make the change, and it seems that it works. This other project is from Fagor and Cedrion. They create something. It's like the plasmidification for the use for primary care. Sorry, I don't remember the word in English, but it's like everything that you use, like fonendos and this kind of things. And it was the first project that we co-create with them from the beginning. Now it works very good because we detect the needs that we need exactly in the primary care centers, the need for the professionals, and we are expecting that they finally create the final prototype in order that be tested and used in our primary care centers. This is another, the Glyconics, that, for example, they create a new technology in order to detect the glycemia in people without only using a specific kind of light source, but without entering in the human body. So, for example, we help them to create all the clinical trials needed for the get the CE mark. So unsuccessfully, I just started. They told me that they failed. That in despite the results, they don't have the CE mark, so they are thinking to make once again another study when they improve the solution. And this is, for example, the ideas that we have in other hospitals or in our own national health systems in order to test in that kind of retinographs, with the idea to detect and follow up the retinopathy of more than 1 million diabetic persons, and make the follow-up in the best way. For example, for that, we detect for the system that this kind of portable retinographs is better for example, in Pyrenees, in the mountain areas, is a need, is a must that they need. But for example, here in Barcelona, you don't need, because you have a lot of different centers that probably you can get it by foot or using public transport. So the projects, the request for service during the year have been increasing. So we are really happy. The decrease in 2024 is because we detect something that for us is a barrier, is that probably the 90% of our clients, our customers, are small companies, smart spin-offs and this kind of companies, or even other research centers or hospitals, and they have limited resources. So we have been to apply for European calls, Spanish calls, Catalan calls, and this is something that we finally believe that we have to decrease the number of proposals if we are not sure that we are going to be successful, because our team is limited. We are only 4 or 5 persons. And in the future, what we are trying, and it's something that we hope we can finish this week, is that an alliance with part of the rest of the national health system of Spain and the institutions that are based in primary care. So the idea must be that they will be integrated in our living lab. With the idea is that sometimes for example, the CE mark, you need a lot of people to be in order to be to test the clinical trials. So apart from the 8 millions, we will have the 6 millions of Madrid, the 2 millions of Balearic Islands and so on. No? So we will share also different aspects of how to manage forward living labs, how to work together, and this is something that we are also trying to do with other European living labs, no? To work together in usually in European projects. So that's all. This is the team. So if you need any kind of questions or anything, I will be really happy to solve for you.
Thank you very much, David. Great presentation, and also thanks for sharing like a different example of a living lab. And also like your approach or your living lab has also been around quite a lot. So it's great to see so many sustainable ways of working in this approach. Are there any questions to David directly after the talk?
It was so boring that no one.
Probably everyone is pretty much excited to go into the interactive session to talk to you directly. I think that could also be the case. I do not see any hand raised yet, but like all of our experts will be around in the interactive session. We're just switching into now. And I think that we set out a couple of questions that really here engage also some further discussions on these topics. So I'm pretty much looking forward to that. So speaking of the interactive session already, now we would like to really answer together this focal questionnaire. How can the living lab methodologies be enhanced to improve the outcomes, overcome the key challenges, and really foster the long-term impact? So really the goal here of this next session is to get together and really identify the key challenges in implementing the living labs, explore the opportunities and the success factors to enhance their effectiveness, and to also uncover the critical elements needed to ensure their long-term impact. So we have covered that in talks already, or kind of scratched upon these topics, and now we're really curious also to hear your perspectives on that, also for you to share your experiences and just share knowledges and also come up with strategies on how these approaches could be improved in the future. So to achieve this, we will be using a dedicated value mapping method, really to identify and to evaluate the values which are captured, destroyed, and missed currently in the living lab methodologies, as well as also the opportunities for sustainability and the impact on the living labs. And also for each of these values, we have a leading question here defined, which will provide us with help to get discussions going and to really identify ideas that could be improved. So we will work on these questions for the next 20 minutes in 2 groups, actually, which are moderated by my colleagues, Anita Lia and Anastasia. Anastasia is actually another ShiftHub colleague, and she's a business and innovation consultant at Kino Innovation Intermediaries from Greece. She's also very well experienced in capacity building, co-creation, and open innovation activities. So she's also an expert here and helping us to moderate the discussions. And we will be using a Miro board for the workshop, for which you have been provided a link earlier in an email, but you will also be provided the link in the chat now. So you can go on that link, click on that. You will be directed to the Miro board, where you can log in with your account if you already have one, or sign up or register for one, which is free of access. But also you can put your ideas and your comments in via our moderators, and also Leonie and me will be around to navigate the chat, so you can also participate in the discussions without having the Miro access. So our moderators will welcome you shortly in the breakout sessions, and after that we'll see each other back in the main room for our closing remarks, and you will now be assigned to your different breakout rooms. Enjoy and see you later.
I would like to welcome you in this breakout session. I would like to remind you that you can share your thoughts, your views, your insights regarding Living Lab methodology. And I am going directly to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So here is the Miro board, which we're going to use in order to discuss more and co-create by following the same mentality as Living Lab methodology regarding the value created and the process that we're going to follow in order to implement the Living Lab methodology. So let's start. Having said all this, we can start with the first column. As you can see, there are different columns where you can see sticky notes. So if you are in your Miro board, if you have your Miro board in front of you, you can use these notes in order to take notes and answer the questions that you can see. Let's start with the first. What elements of current Living Lab practices are generating positive outcomes and working effectively? So here we are talking about value captured and the best practices that we can identify in order to generate positive outcomes. Is do anyone want to start? Is there any idea regarding the practices that can generate positive outcomes? You can, sorry for the background noise, you can think about engaging the participants or the implementation phase or best practices regarding the methodology development.
Maybe. Go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
Yes, yes.
Oh, please go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that, like with maybe the most general part is actually the user-centric approach. That probably for me is like the biggest positive outcome, that you really have the end users there engaging and not just any, I'd say, a cohort. Yeah. So on my end, I would start with that.
Okay, so do you want to write your thought?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yes, okay. And of course, do we have another input after Alina?
Healthcare professionals participation.
Yes. Okay. I will write it down. Yes, Nadja?
Yes, the multidisciplinary approach to bring really people from all the different areas together, and that actually creates all those different perspectives. So that's obviously the very strong point of that approach.
Okay, thank you. I will write it down. Yes, George?
It's maybe it's important that you can involve the quadruple helix. Let's say you can have not only the healthcare, but can also bring policies together with academia, with yeah, anyone that is interested.
Yes, this is important in order to approach the. Oh, sorry. Just. Okay, so I will write down quadruple helix approach. Another topic is that we for sure should include the participants during the whole process of the Living Lab, from the needs identification until the end and the development of the technologies and the market uptake. So something that Lee and Nita mentioned regarding the co-creation, social value, and the continuing interaction among the stakeholders. We can also add this here. Okay. Okay, and then if there is no other input for this column, we can go further for value destroyed. Okay, so can we identify some main challenges, limitations, or unintended negative effects during the Living Lab approaches?
So, yeah, I'll just jump in. I think that one of the biggest problems was the harmonization that has come up. That harmonization between living labs and the approaches. And another thing that I'm always wondering about is like the complexibility of stakeholder coordination, because for some innovations you might have different stakeholder groups as target groups, so public, private, or so. I'm wondering how big of a problem is that actually during living labs to coordinate that, and sometimes do you need to prioritize between different groups? So maybe if someone has experiences on that, you could also share your thoughts on that.
Yes, so we can write down something like prioritization and discuss more if someone has more experience on that.
I can mention on this value destroyed actually is when you create a new living lab, you cannot get the real feedback or the positive feedback. It requires some time. So it could be that you discard the first feedback. You show real interest, you collect their feedback, but then you don't use it because actually they are in the beginning that they provide you, because I want also to mention this in the positive outcomes or positive feedback. There are two concepts of positive, two sides of positive feedback. One is positive is the real feedback. I don't like this technology. But the people in the beginning think that the positive feedback is good words. What nice tool you have, etc. You see, so you have to reach the point that you make them feel comfortable giving negative feedback. Positive outcome, but negative feedback. So in the beginning, the first 6 months, 1 year, until they trust you and they know that you are happy with negative words feedback, you discard their feedback. I want also to comment this in the beginning, yes, in the first time.
So you need time to see, to create value and to build trust among the community in order to gain the right feedback, let's say, the real, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, David, I think you raised your hand.
Yes. Another thing is that it happens for us last week. It's about the regulatory. I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but for example, for us, if the project that comes from outside is probably, but it's not even a SIM, a medical device, we have to add a specific insurance for the project, and several times it's very it's not what I mean to say is that it's not exactly cheaper. So it's a limitation, and it's about at the end it's about the regulatory, because you have to fit several things. It's not only about money, no, but it's about a lot of things required for the CE mark, for example.
So it increased the complexity of the process, let's say.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Nadia?
Did I still have my hand up? Sorry, no, it was already done. Thank you.
Okay.
Wait, I put it down. Sorry. Okay.
Okay. I don't know if we have anything else regarding limitations or negative effects during living lab approaches. maybe something relevant to Evdokimos' comment is the limited feedback from the participants and the difficulty to express their opinions. It's relevant to Evdokimos. So we can go further with value missed. And which opportunities, resources, or stakeholder contributions are currently underutilized or overlooked in Living Lab implementation? What we can see here, let's say regarding community, which are the opportunities that we can create in order to foster the implementation of Living Lab methodology?
You can, instead of having a session where you discuss with them or you monitor them, which is not the real environment, but is the environment under observation, you can somehow try to see how you can enter their community or actually collaborate with people that are from their community. So, for instance, in our case for the hospital that I mentioned before, it could be that we invite the nurses to come here and discuss. They're under observation, they're gonna have all, the defenses that they can, or start collaborating with one of the nurses in there. Or you go there and you, as a researcher, and you stay there for 1 2 weeks to understand when is the right time, etc. So you have to feel, or you have to somehow elicit the feelings and not the actual actions that they transfer to you. So the opportunity missed is that you prepare to ask for information and you not feel the information that you would like to get.
So we're talking about active engagement, let's say, with the stakeholders. Yes. Okay. David?
Yeah. Different examples from our side, we detect that probably the most important stakeholders for the national health systems are the key persons that finally decided which are the solutions that must be implemented in the system. Yeah, at the end, it's very similar what Evdokimos says, but it's very important, these key persons in the national health systems, because it doesn't matter what you do. If they don't decide to put it inside, you're not going to be successful.
Okay. I think that another issue may be raised here is related to the specific types of stakeholders needed within the community in order to target a specific thematic, let's say. So to target the right groups, something like that. Is there any other input here?
I've just added another one that Evdokimos mentioned in his talk, that in all you really also foster the cross collaboration between different living labs. So like the infrastructure and the healthcare. So I think that this is maybe a point we should also mention here again, that having a cross-sector collaboration between the living labs like healthcare technology or even social sciences, should be pushed more, I'd say, in an ideal scenario.
True. Okay, so we can move on to value opportunities, and which are the key aspects which should be prioritized or strengthened in order to enhance the success and the effectiveness of living labs. So here we're talking about things that can promote and foster the success and effectiveness of living labs. Is there any input from you?
Perhaps, sorry, I cannot raise my hand for some reason. The system does not allow me. We could deepen the inclusive co-creation. So, for instance, we could ensure that participants from diverse user groups, marginalized groups, vulnerable populations can be actively involved in the process, because I think this is really difficult. I mean, academia, industry might be easier to approach sometimes, but the citizens, especially vulnerable citizens, I think needs to be prioritized.
Yes, and maybe different ages or different educational levels, all those things in order to broaden our basis.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. What else can we add here? Let's think about it. Something that will foster the effectiveness of our approach. Maybe a usage of other resources, let's say desktop research or input from bibliography, or interaction with others. We can add this as well. Input from other resources. And for sure, other Living Labs contribution. So this is the cross-sectoral collaboration. Yes.
I was also thinking about like engaging or more the role of the government and the policymakers to be actually aware of the regulatory aspects, that there needs to be like some kind of
address, let's say,
from their side, to enable, I'd say, implementation, more easily.
Yes, Nadia?
Yes, I was thinking also of maybe more communication and outreach, because in order to make it even more known, because of course in the usual circles the methodology may be known, but actually there may be really a lot of additional stakeholders who don't know what Living Labs are, who don't know what open innovation is. So I think this is also a key aspect, maybe to include even more. It goes together with the diversity of the stakeholders to be included. So I think communication and dissemination is a strong element here. And also maybe have different ways of explaining what they are to different target groups who may not all have the same vocabulary to understand.
Yes, you are right. This is a very significant and important thing to keep in mind in order to be on the same page, let's say. And not to be confused with different wordings, or to explain to everyone what this is.
Yes, because also we use a lot of, let's say, terminology that we in this innovation circles or also in projects we use and know, but maybe normal citizens don't. So I think it's also how to adapt a little bit in order to make it more easily explainable.
Yes, and this is important to notice, as Evdokimos said, and Anita as well, within fun and funny and those kind of activities, we can raise awareness as well, and enhance the communication with citizens and patients. Okay, and the last thing is about value for sustainability and impact. Which are the critical factors which enable Living Labs to deliver long-term impact and to remain sustainable over time? So this is something I think that Evdokimos and Anita should provide us their insights and their feedback. How can we keep sustainable a Living Lab?
Actually, I'll say I think it's really important to find the services, not the services that you can provide as a Living Lab, but the services that are required by the community.
Okay.
Because there is this kind of, since we are researchers, many of us are researchers, those that sustain a Living Lab, we always tend to provide what we can do best. But if this is not needed by those that they pay, could be the European Commission, the city, or the university, whatever, we're going to have really cool services that could not contribute to sustainability. So to identify those that are really required.
Yes. Another thing that I would add here is related to both technology providers, researchers, and end users regarding the feedback that they would feel free to express. And from the other side, from the researchers and technology providers, get the feedback and use it in a helpful and useful way, something like that. Yes, Nadia?
Yes, I'm wondering actually about the funding streams. I don't know exactly how different living labs are actually being funded. It's probably a mixture of, I don't know, national, European, and private funding. But I think to establish this, I don't know about the business model to have that kind of, obviously think about how can we provide that long-term funding. Also because it is eventually also, I mean, part of it is the service to society. So of course, you could also argue that in each country where the living lab is established, let's say the public funding could support this. I don't know if this makes sense. This is just, yeah, to think of that. If it's not knowing exactly what the funding structure is. So, but yeah, just an input here.
Okay, thank you. And for sure, I think that this collaborative process to be maintained and enhanced during the year, it is really important in order to have a meaningful contribution within these living lab methodologies. And I would also add the open communication with society, as previously said. Open communication channels, let's say. Okay. I don't know if anyone else want to add something, to comment on something. Otherwise, we can close the session.
Just, yeah.
Yes, from my side, I would like to thank you all for your contribution and this discussion. And let's go to the central room.
Thanks very much for everyone who participated today. From my side, it has been a great exchange, and I hope that you were all able to gain some valuable and practical insights, also expand your expertise on the living labs and their impacts, and that you also created, I'd say, some new contacts, or at least are aware of organizations, experts out there to contact to if you're interested in living labs, and I'd say the methodologies, and also where to access already existing ones. So our expertise are definitely the ones to reach out. So thanks again for showcasing also your organizations and all the great work you have done so far. Also from the Shift Hub side, we would like to ensure like a good quality of our events. So I kindly ask you to provide feedback on today's workshop via this anonymous survey. The link will be shared in the chat shortly. You can either do so now by clicking on this link in the chat, which we would kind of prefer because everything is quite fresh at this moment. Or you can also find the link then in the follow-up email in which we will share the recording, the report, and all the slides from today.